Welcome to Cast Your Bets, the Offshore Gaming Association podcast with your hosts Jim Quinn of OSGA.com and J.R. O'Donnell of Red Zone Sports. Let's get started.
Hello, folks, and welcome to Week 9 of Cast Your Bets, a weekly podcast where we try to teach you a little bit about betting, teach you a little bit about sportsbooks and playing online, and at the same time, offer you a couple of winners. I'm Jim here from OSGA, Offshore Gaming Association at OSGA.com, here with my good friend, J.R. O'Donnell, who's going to help us out with some games. J.R.O., how you doing tonight?
Doing well, my friend. Hard to believe that Week 9 is upon us, but hey, football's full gear, full swing, and we got two nice fat winners. We're going with some great teams this week. I got some stats and trends. I'm doing my homework, and let's see if we can hang up two big winners for the listeners.
Yeah, well, you're holding your own this season at a fat 61.5%, which is still making money. Last week, did a nice job on the college game. Ended up with a straight up winner there. And, I thought the pro pick was a good pick, but it ended up losing. So you went 1-1 last week. How'd you make out for your customers over there at pregame.com?
I did really well in the colleges, had a lot of nice games in the colleges, some ATS winners, some fat up, straight up winners. And in the NFL, I got burned a little bit in the NFL. Hey, I put my money on the San Francisco 49ers. I asked a bad team to do some good things for me. Everybody who watched that game, I don't get into the shoulda, coulda, wouldas for that game. They gave up 14 unanswered points, a cheap way to end that first half. And the Niners, are just that bad. We talked about it off the air a little bit. 49ers, with all their close game covers, went into a team with Philadelphia that had a chip on their shoulder. Philadelphia just kept the hammer down. Now, if you go to the flip side a little bit, I'd love to talk about Iowa State a little bit. As they played some defense, TCU, number 4th in the nation, gets off the plane in that nasty weather. They had a little swagger. They went in there, and TCU just could not move the ball. 7 points to an Iowa State defense. Biggest game in Ames, Iowa in years, and Iowa State hangs a straight-up W, catching 6.5.
Yeah, that was fat, man. I really enjoyed that winner there. I'm really surprised TCU could only put up 7 points. But I think when you talked about the game last week, you were leaning a lot on Iowa State's D and the fact that they were playing at home.
Absolutely. Iowa State is an under-the-radar, undervalued team. A lot of people that handicap this college sports, they don't usually like to play Iowa State because Iowa State is a traditionally poor cover team. Now, this year, they're senior-laden. They play defense. They got a great coach. And everybody's going to play the marquee teams. They're going to play the Alabamas. They're going to play UCLA. They're going to play Florida State. But this year, Iowa State is in a great cover spot. They play defense. And I love teams that play defense, and I love teams that don't turn the ball over. TCU, little full of themselves, only puts up 7. They are limping all the way back to Texas.
And I'm lining my pockets, and that's a good thing. We like that. Yeah, and the Niners, they let us down for sure. And that's kind of what I want to talk about a little this week. We're halfway through the season. It's time for me to start looking at some teams that, either I'm never going to play this season, I'm probably not even going to look at the games, and the Niners are on that short list. Another team that I can't stand is the Chargers right now. Do you have any other teams that you're looking to completely fade at this point or just play against?
Well, when you look at the NFL, obviously, and I preach to people to have a short memory. The team's never as bad as it presented itself the week before, and it's really never as good as they present themselves the week before. But, when you look at some of these teams that are against the spread, the Cleveland Browns are a traditional terrible team. Not only are they 0-8, but they're 1-6 against the spread. Now, usually things like that even out. But a Cleveland Browns team that can't play defense or can't hold on to the ball is a definitely throwaway team for me. I'm not going to ask a bad team to do good things for me in the NFL with the Cleveland Browns. Arizona Cardinals 1-6 against the spread. Tampa Bay 1-5-1, and the Washington Redskins, who are supposed to be a pretty good team, 2-5 against the spread. You got to look real hard at some of these teams that are just playing bad, turning the ball over, and are not well coached. On the flip side, how about the Buffalo Bills leading the NFL in covers 5-1-1 against the spread? They don't turn the ball over. They can play good defense. And the Kansas City Chiefs, what can you say about Andy Reid? 6-2 straight up and 6-2 against the spread. Those are the teams you want to look to do some good things for you. And the bad teams at the bottom, the Browns, and those teams like that, you want to stay far away from.
Well, there's also two surprising teams. We chirped a little bit about Oakland at the beginning of the season. I mean, Oakland here looks like they were supposed to win 9.5 games was the over/under for the year. And here they sit at 3-5, and they're personally a team that I can't figure out. I don't know who's going to show up every week, and they're a team that I'm going to fade for the rest of the year for sure. And another one is the Denver Broncos. It's a shame because it looks like maybe Simeon is not the answer, and they've really struggled in recent weeks. That's another team that they're 3-4, but against the spread they're 2-4. And I think we had some high hopes for them in the beginning of the year in the AFC West. So it just, I'm fading three teams in the AFC West. Maybe I just have a little bit of a opinion about those folks out west. I'm not sure.
Well, when you look at Denver in the beginning of the year, Trevor Siemian was supposed to be the second coming, obviously, and also Paxton Lynch, and they just couldn't get the job done. Denver Broncos won everything on their defense. Everybody knows about the Broncos defense, but this year their offense is even worse than usual. So when they're going to give up 14, 16, 20 points, they're not going to cover the ball games. And Denver Broncos is a defense-laden team, but you're looking at 2-4-1 against the spread. And right now the Denver Broncos is a stay away from team or a play against team the way out.
Yeah, I mean, halfway through the season is a good time to reevaluate what you're doing in terms of betting. Asking bad teams at this point to do good things, I think, is shooting yourself in the foot. It's almost like I'm starting to expect teams to tank like they do in the NBA and stuff. And the flip side of that is we know these teams are bad. It's easy to see the ATS records. It's easy to know maybe I should fade the Broncos or the Chargers or the 49ers or the Browns. But that also means the lines makers are aware of this. They're also aware of the public perception of these teams. So I think we're to the point where, the lines makers, they really have it together. And these lines are going to be super sharp. They're not going to move a whole lot. You almost can bet the game on a Tuesday like you can on a Sunday morning. What are your thoughts there? It just seems to me like even though we think we have an edge, the lines makers, they're always a step ahead of us.
Absolutely. They don't have big, fancy buildings, and they don't have lights all over the place, and they don't have the strip going 24/7 if they're losing money. These lines makers, and I've been doing this, like I said, 22 years. Now, 22 years doesn't make me an expert, but it makes me a seasoned guy that has seen this movie before. I'm telling you, in the beginning, the first 5 weeks of the NFL, first 6 weeks, even the first 7 weeks, the lines makers are on top of things, but you can get an edge, and you can be, right out of the gate, you can do great in the NFL. But things are going to catch up because after 8 weeks through, the lines are going to be sharper and sharper in the NFL. The NFL is the big daddy of football. The NFL is the most bet football, not only by the sharps, but also by the public. So what's going to happen is these guys realize that on the nondescript college games, they don't have to spend as much time. But I can guarantee you one thing. They are sharp as a tack from 8 weeks on, and the lines makers have the edge, which means you even have to do more homework, you have to do more transparency with these teams, and you have to dig deeper because the harder you work, the luckier you get in this business.
Yeah, absolutely. Just looking on the surface at a particular game, and the other thing we've been talking about is the week-to-week aspect of the NFL. And, you're also going to see some of that coming up in the next few weeks, too. And it's time to look for maybe an odd line, maybe a place where the line doesn't move and the public's all over a game, something like that. Because here we are, the home stretch almost for a lot of these teams. And we're looking at, sharp lines, tough action, tough sledding, really, unless you get up at, while the crows are still sleeping. Like you do, JR.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm a creature of habit. People, have called me anything from a funny duck to a lot of other names when it comes to handicapping. But, I have a lot of customers and I have a lot of people who rely on me. And when they're putting their faith in me and they're putting their faith in me to make them a little bit of money, it's certainly a disservice to them if I don't work as hard as I can. I try to pride myself on being a little busy here. But if I can jump back to the flip side and make a great point here about what you're talking about, a lot of these teams have bye weeks now. And a lot of these teams are traditionally fantastic or terrible off that bye week. So if the listeners out there want another bullet for their gun, want another thing in their arsenal, look at some of these teams here, how they went into the bye and how they're going to come out to the bye. Because what happens is some of these teams are fantastic off a bye week, and that's another bullet to put in your arsenal.
Dude, that's something we got to talk about because, you know, they're going to all start rotating around. And I remember when Andy Reid was in town with the Eagles, you wanted to mortgage the house to bet on the Eagles because I think that when he was here, he went like 10-2 or 11-1 or something after the bye. So, you know, that's definitely something that people should be looking at in addition to realizing, you know, the lines are super sharp and there's some teams out there that we should, you know, totally be avoiding. You know, so, JR, last week you had a big, huge, fat college winner. And, you know, it's time to look for another one here. I know you're going out west. You're going to the Mountain West Conference, looking at a game that, you know, it's nice to hear these games because I personally don't know that much about these teams and know that much about these games. So, you know, give us a nice fat winner that's maybe a little off the radar.
I love to go off the radar, and I love to go with good coaches this year, and I love to go with good defenses, and I love to go with teams that don't turn the ball over. I'm going to look at a Colorado State Rams team laying 3.5 or 3 on the road against Wyoming. Now, people are going to say Wyoming is a public darling, all-American quarterback. They got Craig Bowl, who replaced basically the Nebraska black shirt defense in Wyoming, the nation's best turnover margin. Everything in the world points to Wyoming at home here except one thing. The line makers to me, that's right, the line makers to me are respecting Colorado State here on the road at 3.5. Wyoming, it's way too easy right now to catch 3.5 at home with a team that has everything going for them, quarterback, defense, nation's #1 power, this and that. But you know what? It looks way too easy. I've seen this movie before, and I'm going to take a team that's well coached. Mike Bobo has a high-powered Colorado State offense. They have covered 5 straight here, and Mike Bobo is 9-1 as a visitor here in this series. There's a lot of things that you dig deep here. Wyoming traditionally just does not play well against Colorado State. They're at home. Wyoming is at home getting 3.5, and that's not going to be enough. Colorado State does the things that I like well in college football. They play defense. They don't turn the ball over. They have a good offense, and they have a quarterback that gets the ball done. They can run the ball. They can throw the ball, and they are going to go into Wyoming at a big day when everybody in the world is going to play Wyoming plus the points, and I'm going to come two-fisted with the Colorado State Rams. Great coach. That's right. Mike Bobo can get it done. Lay the 3.5. This is a 7 to 10 point game. Play Colorado State as my college winner.
Dude, that is an awesome play. I'll tell you, the Mike Bobo, that stat you pulled out of what they are going to Wyoming under Bobo, was it 9-1?
Yes, at 9-1, and they are basically the Rams are 8-1 versus the line as a visitor. That's right, on the road, 8-1 versus the line. That's not an indescript stat of 2-1 or 3-1. Bobo and the Rams are 8-1 versus the line last 9 as a visitor in this conference, and they're going to be 9-1 as a visitor here because they are not afraid of Wyoming. They know this team in and out, and they're going to go in there and they're going to put the smack down on the Cowboys.
And you know what else I love? Bobo apparently went out in public and he said that they got their ass kicked last week in a 45-28 loss to Air Force. And that's got to be some extra motivation. I like the angle. I like the extra motivation. JRO taking Colorado State. What are you going with? It's at 3.5, 3. I've seen it around. I've seen it drop to 2.5. What are we going to put this one on the board at?
I'm going to put it at 3.5 because I think the line's going to be 3.5 by game time. I have a lot of information. I told you the sharpest sources out there are my boys in Hawaii, and they got this game circled. They are certainly not going to drop the line. I think 3.5 is where it's going to settle at. Maybe even 4, but it's not going to drop. Let's play it at 3.5 to be safe. We're fair out there. We're the last thing from giving out fake lines. 3.5 is where it's going to settle.
All right, so that's the goal. The Colorado State Rams minus 3.5 at the Wyoming Cowboys, and a big Mountain West showdown between the number 2 and number 3 team in that conference. I like this game, JR. We wish you good luck. We wish the listeners out there good luck, and we'll be right back after a word from OSGA.
The offshore betting industry is totally unregulated.
Where can you turn to make sure your money is safe offshore?
The Offshore Gaming Association, OSGA. Visit the Offshore Gaming Association at www.osga.com or call them toll-free 7 days a week at 877-OSGA-BET. That's 877-674-2238. Established in 1998, the OSGA has been the ultimate watchdog for the unregulated offshore betting industry. They have helped thousands of players find secure, reputable offshore wagering outlets and perform dispute resolution for hundreds of wronged players. Visit the Offshore Gaming Association at www.osga.com and call them toll-free at 877-OSGA-BETS.
Welcome back, folks, to Cast Your Bets, the weekly podcast with myself, Jim from OSGA, and JRO from Red Zone Sports, who you can find over at pregame.com. We try to bring you some insights every week into some games and the sportsbook industry. This week, I'd like to give you a little insight into bonuses. You know, often when you go to sign up at one of these offshore places, they're going to hit you with a big, huge promo. You got to sign up here, and we'll give you a 100% bonus. We'll give you a 200% bonus. We'll give you a JR. I think the highest I ever heard is 300.
Wow.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So, and what the problem is there's a rollover attached to that. So what we've tried to do is we picked out a couple of bonuses we want to talk to you about real quick that have a nice low rollover. It's nice and achievable. You know, Bet Phoenix is running one right now where, you know, you can take a huge bonus and a big, huge rollover, or you can take a low rollover and a 50% free play with only a 5-time rollover, and that's a really nice thing. You know, one of the things that we see is players take a big bonus and they get a big rollover. For those of you who don't understand, the rollover is basically an amount of action you have to show before you can withdraw your own money. So let's say you deposit $100 and you take a 100% bonus. You now have $200 that you need to roll over X amount of time. So if you're a smaller bettor and you send in an awful lot of money and take a big, huge bonus with a big, huge rollover, it's going to be awful hard for you to attain that. Now, there's places out there like UWager where what they'll do is they'll give you a big rollover initially, but then on any reload you have, they'll give you a nice small rollover. They do 15, they do 20% reload bonuses, and they only do a 4.5-time rollover, which is really nice. You know, and then there's other places out there that, you know, like WagerWeb, where they have 3 different levels of bonus. They'll give you a 10% cash, 15% free play, and only an 8-time rollover. So, you know, if you're a guy who sends in $100, you get $225. You have to roll that over 8 times. You have to show that much action. That would be about $1,700, which during the course of a football season is easily achievable. So when you're out there and you're looking at bonuses and people on the phone, they hit you with a bam, 200%. Sign up today. Send me your money. You don't want to do that right away. You want to look at what that rollover is, and I think it's something that is, if you figure out how much you bet and you spend a little bit of time, you can get a really nice bonus with a rollover that works for you. And, you know, that's what I wanted to talk about today. JR, I'm sure you've had some horror stories over the years of guys who just can't get their money out. And one of the things is it's tied to one of these bonuses.
Absolutely. Anybody that sees those 200 or 300% bonuses, that's the biggest red flag out there in the world when it reference to coming to that. When they do that, they're begging for you to get in there. And then when you get in there, they're certainly not going to take good care of you. 200 and 300% bonuses, you just page right by that one, I can tell you right there.
Absolutely, man. They're holding people hostage, you know. So it's just something that players should think about. We try to educate you a little bit every week. For more information, you're going to go over to OSGA.com. We have a special bonus section where you can go through there and look at what the bonuses are. We try to list what the rollovers are in each one of the pieces that describes the bonus. Or when you're on the phone with somebody or when you're signing up, before you actually send that money and take that bonus, you know, give that a little bit of thought. You know, anything that's more than like a 12-time rollover is really unachievable, and you should look at maybe taking a different option there. So we're looking for players to be able to cash out at the end of the year using picks from JR, picking their own games. You know, and I know JR is looking at some NFL action this week. Got a little bit dogged last week. But I think you got a fat winner this week. We talked a little bit off air about this play, and you're heading down to the NFC South. For the first game, the Falcons are playing in the NFC South, surprisingly, for the Falcons-Panthers, man. Let me know what you're thinking about this game.
Yeah, I'm going to look at the NFC South here, and I'm going to look at the Atlanta Falcons, Carolina Panthers. I'm going to look at a team that's underachieving, I think, with the Atlanta Falcons. Everybody knows what happened last year. You know, they're cutting the ribbons, and the confetti is halfway down on the Atlanta Falcons, and Tom Brady kicks it in high gear and just gets it done, and obviously they are in a tailspin. Now, when it comes to Carolina, they are an overrated team. How about Cam Newton? 2 touchdown passes, 6 interceptions the last 3 games. And Carolina, I think, is not playing good ball right now. Now, everybody thinks Carolina is a tough team, tough defense. They get smashed last week. And Atlanta Falcons, Carolina, line is close, 1.5, pick 'em, maybe even one by game time. This is basically a must-win game for the Atlanta Falcons. Matt Ryan was doing great with Kyle Shanahan and his offense. Now, this year with Steve Sarkisian, the new offensive coordinator, it's going to take Matt Ryan a little bit of time to get back into action. Last week, hey, they beat the Jets. They came back, but they got balanced attack last week. The Atlanta Falcons ran the ball for 140 yards. Ryan avoided some of the picks, and basically the Philadelphia kid can still play, and I think he's finally getting comfortable under Steve Sarkisian. The Atlanta Falcons, like I said, catching 1.5 are going to be my play this week, as I am just not in love with the Carolina Panthers and Cam Newton. The guy is Superman. The guy is everything he makes it out to be, but he is just not going to get it done. Basically, the Carolina Panthers are running the ball 2 yards per carry the past 3 ball games. That's right. Getting the ball rushing 2 yards per carry is not going to get it done. I don't care if Joe Montana's playing quarterback. I am in love with Atlanta. They play good defense. Matty Ryan is a great quarterback. The stats and trends are going to favor Carolina, and the sharp guys like J.R. O'Donnell is going to favor Atlanta. They win the game. Play Atlanta as my NFL pick.
Nice, man. I mean, the Panthers are a 1-point favorite, which is, a little odd, I think, because they haven't really played that well. And Newton is tied for first in the NFL with 11 interceptions, which is crazy for him. And then they go this week and they trade Kelvin Benjamin to the Bills. And I'm like, what? Are you trying to say, you know what, we're going to start tanking because we know we're not going to make it to the Super Bowl? I mean, I'm just really surprised. And then you had Atlanta, who lost a bunch of games in a row. They lost 3 in a row there.
Right.
And they go into New York last week in some of the toughest conditions since the frozen tundra of Green Bay. And in that wind and that rain, and they managed to somehow pull out a win against the Jets, who were really surprising. We talked about them a little while ago. So, I think Atlanta, you talked about this being a do-or-die kind of game for them, and I think that's huge for a team like Atlanta.
Absolutely. The Atlanta Falcons are kind of backed in a corner. They're underachieving a little bit this year, as last year, obviously, we already talked about what happened to them. But the Carolina Panthers are overrated, and Cam Newton leading the league with 11 picks. Now, if it was the first or second week and he wasn't playing well, but you know what? Their defense cannot rely on this the whole time. They got smashed last week to a poor team. They're gaining 2 yards per carry on the ground, and I don't like a team that's got a quarterback that throws interceptions and only runs the ball 2 yards per carry against Matty Ryan, who sometimes gets the job done, with an experienced offensive coordinator with Sarkisian, now finally getting into the groove. It's like, basically the first couple weeks, he wasn't really ready for Sarkisian's offense. Now, I think from week 8 here on, I think he's going to be underneath the quarterback correctly. And if I can make a good point here, Atlanta will win this game. I love the fact that it's a 1-point line. I think Atlanta's the sharp side. Public on Carolina, sharps on Atlanta.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% on this. I haven't been impressed with Carolina one iota this year. They're another one of those teams where 1 week they look good, 1 week they look bad, and they've recently looked very poor. So JRO is going to take the Atlanta Falcons +1 at the Panthers, maybe even a money line play. And if you do money line parlays, try and make a little bit of cash because there'll be a little bit on the plus side there. So that's the Atlanta Falcons +1 at the Carolina Panthers, and the Colorado State Rams -3.5 at Wyoming. Taking 2 road teams, JR.
Absolutely. I'm taking 2 road teams. Colorado State is a well-coached team that I'm not afraid to lay the points on the road, and everybody knows about Atlanta Falcons, how they did in the past. They are thoroughbreds, and I'm certainly not afraid to catch a point at Carolina.
All right, good luck to you and your folks over there at pregame.com. Good luck to the listeners on that. This is the point in the show where I got every once in a while I have to get something on my chest, JR. I'm on the phone with guys who play online every single day, and every once in a while I just have to vent. And this past week we had a player who came to us. He had a problem at a sports book that we were aware of. He was playing at a little place called CR Sportsbet, and they have certain payout policies in place there. They're a smaller place, and when you play at a smaller place, it's going to take a little longer to get paid. And these folks said they were going to pay this guy, and he immediately started bashing him over the head. Where's my money? I don't trust you guys. I see that you're not elite rated. I see that other people have complained about you. I want my money. I want my money. I want my money. And this fellow contacts us, and we said to him, you have to stay cool. These guys will make it more tough for you. And when that starts to happen, there's almost a point of no return where they're eventually going to close your account and throw you out. So this fellow proceeded to send OSGA 12 emails, JR. In the span of 26 hours, I think we got 12 emails. And I can only imagine what the sportsbook had to put up with. So sure enough, 4 days later, they close his account and he's going to get his money. But the thing I want to tell players is when you approach us, we've been in this business for just shy of 20 years at this point, JR, like just a little bit less than you. And we've been dealing with sportsbooks since there was a handful, since you could count them on both hands. And now there's hundreds. Some of them aren't very fair. Some of them will mess with players. And when you contact us, the one thing you have to do is listen to what we tell you. It sounds a little pretentious to say, well, we told you so, but I could smell it 100 miles away with this guy, where as soon as he started hammering us, I was like, oh no, they're going to bang, and they closed his account. And, now he's got a little bit of a problem. He's going to have to wait. He used a credit card, so they're going to have to refund his credit card, which is going to take longer. And, if you're going to contact OSGA, please, please, please take our advice. Matt and Dave on the chat are very knowledgeable. They've been around this business for a while. I've been in this business for nearly 20 years. I can make calls. I can help players out, and you just have to trust when you come to us that we're going to give you solid advice at OSGA.com. Fill out our complaint form. Feel free to hit our guys on chat. Feel free to give us a call. Make sure that you check out this podcast on iTunes, on YouTube every single week, because we got JRO handing out some winners, and we're giving you some sportsbook advice.
Absolutely. That's like going to a doctor, if I can allude to that. Him telling you exactly how it is to get better and then going and just doing your own thing. I mean, obviously, we've been friends, and I've been in this business for a long time, and we've been doing this with the OSGA. You had, obviously, credibility to myself. And, if the people are going to come to you for advice and you're going to take some time, they obviously need to heed your advice in order to come out on the plus side.
Well, it's the same thing that you do. If people are going to come to you and look for picks, they should understand that you're putting time in and energy and probably doing more than they do. And I'm sure that they take your advice solid. Over there at pregame.com. And I'm sure you probably have people that still call you to this day from back in the day when that's all we had.
Yeah, I have people from a long time, and it says a little bit about my business, as I have people send, Christmas presents and gifts to my wife and whatever. And I try not to get too close, but I've developed relationships with these people that I have been solid for these guys for years. And, if you are a one-hit wonder in this business, you're not going to last. But if you can establish the work, and I know I work harder than the guys that obviously pay me, because that's what they do it for. They're, professional people, and doctors and lawyers and Indian chiefs, and they don't have the time to do it correctly. So when they find somebody that does do the work for them, and that's when, that's where the confidence is made, and that's where the relationship and the trust is built.
That's JR. I hope that people go over to pregame.com and check your stuff out over there. We love having you here on the podcast. We love being associated with Red Zone Sports, and we'll be looking for everyone who listened today to come back via iTunes, via YouTube, out on the OSGA site, and out there on the internet to make sure they come back and listen to Cast Your Bets again next week. Good luck, JR. Good luck to you folks out there who are listening. This has been another episode of Cast Your Bets.
You've been listening to Cast Your Bets, the Offshore Gaming Association podcast. Check in each week for more inside the sports gaming world. And don't forget to check us out on your favorite social media site and on our YouTube channel at OSGA Sports Betting. Thanks for listening.